She just wanted to spend Christmas with her son. But that night, he did something that no one expected. He kicked her out of her own house. At the same time that the world celebrated love, unity, and family, she arranged her few things in silence. No screaming, no explanations. Expelled. Sazynod na Christmas Eve. But what this woman didn't know yet, it's just that midnight would bring something that not even her faith dared to ask for. This video is not just a story. It's a revelation. You'll watch it until the end, because something inside you already felt. This story carries a secret that has to do with you. What if I told you that the greatest Christmas miracle wasn't what she expected, nor who she expected, but what was hidden in what she feared most? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll understand why sometimes God allows us to lose everything, just to show that we were never alone. And when the door slammed, she didn't know that she was about to receive the greatest answer that heaven had ever sent. No one prepares for the moment when love becomes absence. When the blood of your blood, the one to whom you have given your all, decides to close the door, not only of the house, but of the heart. This story begins like this, with a mother sitting in front of her own shattered life, trying to understand where everything went wrong. It wasn't Christmas itself. It was the symbol. While the whole world was filled with lights, music, and reunions, she received silence as a gift. A silence that echoed louder than any Christmas song. And it is in this cruel contrast between the noise of the world and the emptiness of the chest that the narrative finds strength. Because when supper turns into emotional fasting, something inside us changes. She didn't wonder why she was expelled. He wondered why he loved so much. A question that, believe me, has already crossed many people's minds. After all, how far is it worth giving without expecting anything in return? Her faith, built over years between prayers and renunciations, began to tremble. But it didn't collapse. And that's where the strength lies. Because abandonment, although cruel, reveals the true essence of those who remain. Many viewers will recognize themselves here, and maybe even remember someone who left them without explanation, at a time when all they wanted was presence. The pain of abandonment is a wound that does not appear in the mirror, but that throbs in the eyes. The protagonist, who we could call Grace, to give a face to the emotion, represents millions of people who love in silence, who suffer in silence, and who have learned to smile even when the soul is in tears. She doesn't scream, she doesn't complain. He only asks, "Where did I go wrong?" This question, so simple, carries a universe of emotions. It is a question that reveals more about the purity of those who love than about the mistakes that may have been made. Because, in the end, those who love too much always think they made a mistake for having loved too little. Painful irony, isn't it? And look how curious, even in the worst moments, she doesn't curse her son. This, in itself, is an act of emotional heroism. In a world where people sink into resentment, it stands on prayer. That doesn't make it weak. On the contrary, the real power is in not allowing the grudge to mold you. It's easy to love those who love you. It is really difficult to continue praying for those who have turned their backs. And there is a powerful teaching. The soul that forgives even before being forgiven is already one step ahead of the miracle. At this point in the story, the audience is already engaged. Because everyone knows someone who left, who disappointed, who turned the page without even finishing the previous paragraph. And this identification is what makes video more than entertainment. It becomes a mirror. People watch it and think, that story could be my mom, or even myself. And it is at this moment that storytelling fulfills its role. Not to tell something distant, but to open up something deeply human. Now, if you who are reading this have been through something similar, you may understand well what this woman feels. When absence comes from those we love the most, it's not just the heart that suffers. It's faith that shakes, it's the ground that disappears, it's hope that hides. But even so, it remains standing. Because there is something that abandonment can never uproot, the essence. And hers is made of surrender, of compassion, and a silent courage that does not need to prove anything to anyone. This invisible strength, which many confuse with weakness, is what will sustain everything that is yet to come. By the way, stop and think. How many times have you heard a story where, in the midst of the greatest pain, a strength emerged that not even the person knew they had? It's always like that. Life tests, pushes, crushes, but also reveals. It reveals who we are when no one is looking. And it was in this vacuum of attention, in this Christmas when everyone seemed so busy with their joys, that she discovered something precious. That even silence can be sacred when the soul is willing to listen. And without realizing it, this deep listening will be the first step towards an amazing turnaround. She never asked much of life. She just wanted to be remembered. Not for the things he gave, nor for the nights he spent next to his son's bed with a fever. Not even for the punctured shoes he wore so as not to lack food in the fridge. All she expected was a heartfelt thank you, an unexpected call, a simple gesture that said, "I know how much you've done for me." But life doesn't always reward the good-hearted the way they deserve. And that hurts. It hurts more than any physical blow. The absence of recognition is a kind of living death, because it kills dreams, numbs hope, and, little by little, cools even the most stubborn love. Still, she kept going. She followed because the silent promise that one day it will be worth it echoed within her with more force than doubt. And how many people live like this? Hoping that one day love will return, that the gesture will be reciprocated, that the silence will be broken. The trajectory of this mother is the portrait of many women who live under the logic of giving without expecting anything. And not out of weakness, but out of conviction. She gave herself whole. She was a wife, a friend, a counselor, a nurse, a psychologist, a teacher, a cook, a driver, a provider. Each title without a badge, without salary, without recognition, but with a delivery that no MBA teaches. Love, for her, was a verb of action, not a noun of occasion. She understood that to love is to pay the price that the other does not see. It's kneeling without an audience. It is giving up one's own dreams to see the other achieve theirs. How many nights did she stay awake waiting for her son to get home from college? How many times did you hide your tears so as not to worry? How many clothes did you stop buying to ensure that he had the best uniform, the best material, the best chance? And yet, when time passed, he walked away. Not all at once, of course. These things are never abrupt. They are pieces of affection that are lost along the way. First, phone calls decrease. Later, birthdays became only quick messages. Then, Christmas becomes a, "It won't be possible to go this year." And when you realize it, the hug has become an obligation. The visit became protocol. His presence became a burden. And no one told you anything. They just stopped looking at you with their eyes as before. What hurts the most, deep down, is not the distance. It's realizing that, for him, you are no longer needed. This is the wound that does not bleed, but corrodes. And there's more. The world applauds those who win, but forgets who supported the victors when they were still crawling. That mother was the pillar he stepped on to climb, and now that he's up there, he pretends he built everything himself. But she doesn't hold a grudge, because true love does not account for emotional debts. She just keeps silent, and in her silence there is a strength that few have. The ability to continue loving those who have forgotten what it was like to be loved. And look how curious, even in moments when the revolt would be legitimate, she prefers peace. Not out of cowardice, but because he knows that anger makes those who feel it sicker more than those who provoke it. At this point in the video, the viewer begins to revisit their own story. And you may even wonder, do I recognize enough who loves me? Or worse, have I become the son I once promised never to be? It is this introspection that creates connection. Because Grace's story, this mother who symbolizes so many others, is not only hers. It's the neighbor's, grandmother's, aunt's, colleague's mother. It's ours. And in this silent recognition, a transformative empathy is born. The narrative does not accuse, does not point the finger. It invites reflection. And that's the beauty, making the viewer not only see the story, but feel like they're inside it. It is also here that we begin to understand that family conflicts do not arise from a single act. They are micro-wounds, misplaced words, forgotten promises, absences justified by busy life. They are silences that scream. These are dinners in which cell phones speak more than the eyes. And when we add all this up over the years, we have an abyss dug with a teaspoon. No one fights all at once. No one breaks up for a single mistake. Relationships die of emotional anemia. And this video shows, sensitively and non-judgmentally, how urgent it is to stop romanticizing absence and start practicing presence. The mother knew that. She felt that the distance from her son was an iceberg, and what she saw was only the tip. But behind the coldness there were stories, frustrations, unspoken sorrows. And even so, she didn't give up. He continued to pray. He continued to keep his childhood notes. She kept remembering the first toothless smile, the first time he said, "Mommy." She lived between the past that sustained her and the present that wounded her. And even wounded, she continued. Not out of heroism, but for love. Love that doesn't demand, doesn't pressure. Just wait. And sometimes, the greatest power is this: to stay, even when everything tells you to leave. And in the next moment of the story, we will find out what led the son to make such a tough decision. The distancing does not start with shouting, nor with fights. It is born in the detail, in the lack of an attentive eye, in the absence of simple questions, in the "I'll talk to her later" that never comes. The son in this story, who we'll call Thomas here, a common name in cities like Boston or Vancouver, didn't turn into someone distant overnight. It was not a single gesture that created the chasm between him and his mother. It was a silent accumulation of seemingly small choices. Choices that, little by little, disfigured the memory of love. A new friendship here, a coworker who became a confidant, a routine that swallowed the phone calls, a wife who didn't care about closeness to her mother-in-law. And so, almost imperceptibly, the bonds began to fray, like an old sweater that, with a strand pulled, falls apart entirely. Thomas was not evil. He was just blind. Blinded by the rush, by professional ascension, by the new social environments in which his mother, simple and traditional, seemed out of place. Blinded by an ego inflated by the constant need for external validation. You know that kind of success that looks beautiful on Instagram, but costs the soul dearly? He lived it. The new house with a modern design, the car of the year in the garage, dinners in sophisticated places, trips with influential friends. All of this was accompanied by a silent certainty. I built everything myself. And that's where the most common and most dangerous mistake of human relationships began. Forgetting the roots. Forget who cleaned the floor so he could walk. Who changed the diapers, held the bicycle, decorated the multiplication table with it, and wrote notes on the lunchbox. This emotional blindness is a contemporary evil. It's the price many pay when they trade depth for performance. In today's world, where everything is urgent, too intimate is seen as inconvenient. And Thomas got lost in that. He became kind to strangers and impatient with those who knew him from the cradle. He became polite to his mother-in-law and negligent to his own mother. He became what he never thought he would be, someone who only tolerates those who loved him the most. And this is not a judgment, it is a mirror. How many of us, without realizing it, prioritize who arrived later and neglect who was there from the beginning? How many have responded coldly to messages from those who just wanted to say, "I miss you"? His mother noticed all this, but did not confront it. Instead, he prayed. His room became a refuge. Each night, a lit candle, a rosary in his hands, a whispered plea. "Lord, protect my son from the world, and from himself." She could see that his heart was hardening. He knew that success was not the problem, but the illusion he carried that he no longer needed anyone. And that hurt her, because more than being forgotten, it hurt to be replaced. Not for people, but for priorities. And how many mothers around the world do not experience this? They see their children grow up and become unreachable, even though they live in the same city. They see their grandchildren grow up without knowing the smell of their kitchen, the taste of their food, the warmth of their lap. And here comes a sensitive point. Thomas did not know how to forgive, neither to others, nor to oneself. Inside him, there were unhealed traumas, poorly digested charges, old hurts that he never had the courage to talk about. Perhaps he kept some childhood grudge, a misplaced phrase, an absence that he interpreted as rejection. And as he did not learn to dialogue, he preferred to flee. This is what many do. They feel bad around those who bring unresolved memories, so they prefer to keep their distance. It's easier to invent a busy schedule than to face one's own vulnerability. And so, without realizing it, they break the mirror of their own identity. Because those who flee from the origin inevitably get lost in fate. This distancing, like a fog that settles without fanfare, began to contaminate other areas of Thomas's life. He became more impatient, more cynical, more demanding. I thought that everything needed a quick return. Immediate result. Application that solves in 3 clicks. But the human heart is not a startup. Relationships do not have a restore previous version button. And when he closed himself off from his mother, he began to close himself off from the most sensitive part of himself as well. Walking away from her was like tearing a piece of his soul, only he didn't know it yet. She would only feel it later, when she stood in front of the same door that one day told her to leave. And the most tragic thing is that he was not a monster. He was an ordinary son, full of qualities, but without emotional maturity. He loved, but he didn't know how to show it. He cared, but he didn't know how to get back. He carried the guilt, but disguised it with arrogance. This is the pain of many children. They want to get closer to each other, but they don't know where to start. They are ashamed to recognize that they made a mistake. They think that asking for forgiveness is admitting weakness, when in fact it is a sign of greatness. And that's why they keep silent. They let time pass. Until, sometimes, it's too late. But in this case, there was still a chance. There was still a loophole. There was still a prayer being said on the other side of the city, and a miracle quietly brewing. Because, you see, God has unusual ways of touching hearts. Sometimes the break comes at the height of pride. The fall comes at the peak of vanity. And a small gesture, a detail that would seem banal, can become the catalyst for a reunion. But that moment has not yet come. For now, Thomas's emotional blindness kept him at bay, geographically and spiritually. And the mother, he remained firm. He continued to pray, to forgive in silence, to believe without proof, to love without return. Because she knew something he didn't know yet. No one is lost forever. And who was once raised in love always finds his way back, even if it is by the most unlikely miracle. The house was silent. Not that comfortable silence that cradles a good read or a lazy Sunday afternoon. It was a dense, almost solid silence. It seemed that each wall breathed nostalgia, that each piece of furniture silently observed the absence of those who should be there. The Christmas lights flickered lonely in the window, as if waiting for someone who would not come. And in the midst of that melancholy scene, there she was, sitting on the edge of the bed, hands clasped together, eyes downcast, heart startling. Loneliness is a territory where many get lost, but it somehow began to find itself there. The absence of the sun was no longer an open wound. It was a fresh scar, yes, but a scar. And scars, as painful as it is a sign that there has been healing starting to happen. That night, Grace no longer cried, not because he had overcome it, but because he had chosen a new posture, to surrender. And there is something tremendously strong about that. Because surrender is not giving up, it is trust. It is when the soul recognizes that it has already done everything it can with its own hands, and now it needs to let bigger hands lead the destination. Next to the bed rested an old wooden box, one of those you keep memories of just by the way it's worn. She hadn't touched it in years. It was a gift from his son when he still had small hands and bright eyes. The box played a soft song, almost childish, but which carried the story of a time when love did not need proof. It only existed. That night, moved by an almost mystical impulse, she opened the box and slowly turned the crank. The melody filled the room like a whisper from the past. It was as if each note brought back a forgotten memory. Their first Christmas together, the smell of his hair after the shower, the sound of laughter as he stumbled trying to walk. It was impossible to contain the emotion. She didn't cry, she felt it. I felt each memory with my whole body. And there, between song and silence, she found something she had long lost: presence. Not the physical presence of someone, but the presence of God. Not the God far from the grandiose temples, but the intimate God who inhabits the space between one note and another. The God who reveals himself when everything else falls silent. And it was in that room, with a smell of soft incense and low light, that she said a different prayer. He didn't ask for his son back. He did not ask for justice. He did not ask for Christmas to be fixed. He asked for wisdom. He asked not to harden his heart. He asked to continue loving without getting lost. He asked to be a channel of peace, even though the world around him was at war. And this prayer was not made with beautiful words. It was done with broken breath, with trembling hands, with a whole soul. Surrendered. It is this kind of prayer that moves mountains, because it is not born of despair, but of surrender. And surrender, my friend, is the most powerful language of the Spirit. She knew she couldn't change her son. He could not undo the mistakes, but he could change his own look. Instead of waiting for the phone call that might never come, he chose to call God. And she was answered, not with an audible response, but with a peace that no explanation can achieve. It is as if the heart, which was once in pieces, had been sewn together with invisible threads. And at this point in the story, the viewer begins to feel something different. The narrative is no longer just a family drama and becomes a spiritual experience. Because all of us, at some point, will be left alone. And in that loneliness, we have two choices: to wallow in pain or to rise up in faith. The most beautiful thing is that this scene has no show. There are no lightning bolts, no voice from heaven, no exaggerated miracles. There is silence. It has a soft melody. He has raw, real faith without makeup. And that, in itself, is the miracle. Because anyone who has been through deep pain knows, healing does not come from answers. Comes from presence. Of the silent certainty that, even if everything collapses, there is something greater sustaining everything inside. And this feeling is what the script delivers here. The possibility of reuniting with yourself when everyone else has left. The possibility of transforming the room into a temple, pain into prayer, silence into wisdom. The music box, which until then was just an object, becomes a symbol. A mystical link between past and present, between mother and son, between earth and heaven. It is as if that melody were an invisible thread that still connected hearts, despite the distance. A reminder that there are things that time does not erase, it only transforms. And the viewer understands that this story is not just about family forgiveness. It's about spiritual reconnection. It's about feeling again, believing, trusting. In a world where everything is noise, this woman chose silence as an answer. And there, in the midst of loneliness, he found something that no one can take away: communion with the divine. And it is exactly this communion that will prepare the ground for what is to come. Because the real miracle never starts on the outside. It starts from within, inside a heart that refuses to harden, even after being broken. Inside a soul that chooses to keep the candle burning, even when everything around it seems dark. Within a faith that chooses to continue, even without guarantees. And it is this silent but unshakable faith that will soon be put to the test. Because the clock doesn't stop. And as midnight approaches, something is about to happen. It's curious how time behaves differently when we're expecting something we don't know will come. The hands seem to mock our anxiety. Every second stretches like a rubber band about to break. The night progresses, but the feeling is that time has stopped on purpose, as if the entire universe is holding its breath, waiting for a signal. In the house where there used to be laughter and stories, now there is only the ticking of the clock hanging on the wall. It does not fail. He is there, tireless, marking every moment with an almost cruel coldness. But, for her, that rhythmic sound is more than counting time. It's a memory. It is prayer. It is prophecy. Because from early on that lonely Christmas Eve morning, her heart knew something would happen at midnight. And so, while the world outside was filled with color and partying, inside that house everything was a pause. The coffee cooled in the mug. The candle on the shelf trembled with the wind that passed through the cracks in the window. Her eyes sometimes closed in contemplation, sometimes opened to check the clock, as if every minute were a rehearsal of faith. She wasn't anxious, no. He was present, totally surrendered to the moment, as someone who understands that hope is not waiting for something, but being ready when it comes. And in this almost meditative state, she began to pray. But it was not a desperate prayer, nor one loaded with requests. It was an intimate conversation, whispered to the divine, like someone writing a letter to someone who has always read his thoughts. She prayed for neighbors, for separated families, for abandoned mothers like herself. He prayed with name and surname, with details. He remembered colleagues from his youth, people who have already left, grandchildren he never met. And at the end of each prayer he added, "And bless my child too, Lord." Wherever he is, it warms his heart. It was as if his soul, invisible, crossed streets, cities, states, flying to where the sun was, whispering love in his ear, even if he didn't consciously listen. This scene is not to be watched only with the eyes, but with the heart. Because there was the pinnacle of spirituality, the love that demands no return, the forgiveness that anticipates repentance, total delivery without guarantees. And as the hands approached 12 strokes, something different took over the environment. It was not fear, nor tension. It was a silence loaded with meaning. That kind of silence you feel when you're in front of something sacred. She stood up slowly, straightened her hair as if preparing to receive a visit, not from someone physical, but from a revelation. He lit the last candle in the hallway. She wore the shawl she inherited from her own mother. He placed the music box on the table, the same as his son's, now with the lid ajar, as if he wanted to sing again. And then, he sat in the chair in the living room, hands in my lap, eyes fixed on the clock. 23:58. 23:59. Midnight. Midnight came like a whisper. No explosion, no supernatural vision, just a soft presence that invaded the air. And at that exact moment, what should have been just one more minute turned into eternity. It was as if time stopped to listen to what she had to say. And she, instead of talking, just closed her eyes. Felt. Breathed. Did you understand? Something inside her had changed. She was no longer the woman who had been expelled. It was the woman who remained. That resisted abandonment. That she found herself in the middle of the void. And that's when the miracle begins to form. Not outside the door, but inside the chest. The viewer, at this point, is no longer just following the story. He is inside it. Because everyone, at some point in their lives, has waited for midnight. They have already stayed awake waiting for a message that did not come, a forgiveness that did not arrive, a hug that was postponed. And here, this wait becomes universal. But the difference is how she chose to wait. Not with bitterness, nor with despair, but with faith, with dignity, with serenity. As someone who understands that time is not an enemy, but a master. And that, if there is something happening, it will not be at our pace, but at perfect time. And when everything seems still, 3 beats. Dry, slow, deep. She stands up with her heart racing, but with her feet steady. He goes to the door without rushing, as if respecting the sacred moment that is approaching. Each step is a prayer. Each breath is a bridge between the visible and the invisible. She touches the doorknob with both hands. "Close your eyes." And before opening it, he murmurs, "If it's pain, may I have strength. If it's a miracle, let me be ready." Because she knew that the answer is never in what comes from the outside, but in how you receive what comes. And when the door opens, the world changes. But we are not yet going to reveal what was on the other side. Because this isn't just a video with a twist. It is a spiritual journey. And the story that is about to happen will change not only her life, but the way each viewer sees Christmas. Because the true miracle often does not come with trumpets. He arrives in the form of an unlikely visitor, with simple words, carrying in his chest the answer to a prayer made in the dark. The door creaked slowly, as if respecting the greatness of that moment. The cold wind came in first, cutting through the warm air of the house with an icy gust that brought with it the smell of night, wet street, and distance. She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage in silence. His eyes were looking for something. Maybe the sun, maybe an answer, maybe an end. But what she found was the unexpected. A boy. Small, slight, dirty with dust and shivering. He looked like he was about 8 years old, maybe less. His eyes were wide, not from fear, but from need. The clothes were too thin for the harsh winter of that city. And yet, there he was, standing on the threshold, with his bare feet and his hands spread against each other, as one who carries in his palms the supplication of the world. She didn't ask who it was. He did not doubt. He did not hesitate. He just opened the door wider, as if he was already expecting it. And he came in, not in a hurry, not in shame. He entered as someone who, despite not knowing, had been expected. She offered a blanket, a soup that was on the stove, a piece of freshly warmed bread. They sat at the table, in silence. The boy ate slowly, as if savoring each spoonful as if it were the last. And she just watched. His heart, though taken by surprise, was at peace. There was something about that boy that could not be explained, and maybe that's why she didn't try to explain it. She just welcomed. Because true love does not require resumes, justifications, or identity. He just acknowledges, "You need me now, and I'm here." On the table, between the two, rested the music box. Still open, still playing from time to time the soft melody that had rocked his mother's prayer. The boy looked at her, curious. Then he looked at the box. He tilted his head as if trying to remember something. And then he said in a low voice, "My father had one just like it." She stopped. The spoon stopped in midair. His heart raced. He said that one day he would need to come back to seek forgiveness. The air in the room became denser. The lights seemed to get dimmer for a moment. She just stared at the boy. He said nothing. But inside her, a silent thunder had exploded. The boy then placed the spoon on the table. He looked up, and he pulled out of his coat a small silver chain. It was the same one she had given to her son when he was little, on a Christmas that now seemed to belong to another life. The chain had a small pendant with the name engraved on it, Thomas. She recognized it immediately. That chain never came off his son's neck throughout his childhood. It was a symbol of protection, of promise, connection. And now, it was there, in the hands of a boy she had never seen. The boy then said with teary eyes, "He asked me to give it to you. He said he didn't have the courage to come. But I wanted you to know that he remembers, that he's sorry." At that moment, her tears came down like summer rain. No announcement, no control, no restraint. She didn't cry just for the gesture. He cried because that was the sign she had been asking for years. The sign that his prayers were not in vain. That her love still echoed in her son's heart, even though it was covered by layers of pride, fear, and pain. She picked up the chain with trembling hands. She caressed the pendant as if it were her son's own face. And then she looked at the boy with a tenderness that is rarely seen in the world. "Do you have a place to sleep tonight?" The boy shook his head. "Now there is," she replied. And she hugged him. A long, healing, intense hug. A hug that was not just physical. It was spiritual. It was a hug for the son, through another. A hug in life, in hope, in miracle. Later, while the boy slept in the guest room, she stayed in the living room, holding the chain and staring at nothing, or rather at everything. Her faith had been answered, but in a way she would never have imagined. And that's how God acts. It doesn't give us what we want the way we want it, but it gives us what we need in the most perfect way. She understood that the boy was not just a message bearer. It was a link, an instrument, a living manifestation that true love is never lost. That even when we don't know the way back, love finds a way to reach us. Even if it's through a stranger, even if it's at the last minute. And it is important to say that this boy was not magical. It was not an angel in disguise, nor a spirit sent. He was a real boy, lost, cold, homeless. But that's exactly why it could be used. Because God usually chooses the improbable to accomplish the impossible. And that boy, without knowing it, carried in his hands the medicine that would heal a decades-old wound. The simple fact that he stopped at that door, that night with that chain, could not be by chance. It was destiny. It was an answer. It was mercy embodied in a small and powerful gesture. And those who watch this scene understand that miracles are not grandiose events. These are details full of purpose. They are minimal gestures that carry infinity. This part of the video isn't just exciting, it's transformative. Because who has suffered for someone, who has knelt without having any more strength, who has looked to the sky asking for a sign? Understand what this woman felt. It is as if all the weight of waiting, of renunciation, of abandonment, dissolved in an instant. And the most beautiful thing, the son did not return physically, still. But he came back to what mattered. He came back in regret. It came back in my memory. He returned in the gesture. And the viewer at that point begins to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything he has lived so far can also be transformed. And when the miracle begins like this, it is a sign that the true reunion is still missing. The dawn passed slowly. Outside, the city began to fall asleep in silence, lulled by the Christmas lights that still flickered in the windows, like small hearts beating hope. Inside the house, the boys slept soundly, wrapped in blankets that smelled of lavender, but more than that, they smelled of welcoming. In the next room, she didn't close her eyes. Not out of anxiety or restlessness, but for something bigger, deeper, rarer, peace. For the first time in many years, she felt that something fit inside her chest. It was as if, finally, a part of herself had returned home, even if she still lacked the body, the presence, the voice. But the current, the music box, the boy, everything pointed to one thing only: reconnection. And that was already bigger than any present under the tree. When the sun began to rise, tinging the gray winter sky golden, she poured water to boil, cut some fruit, baked fresh bread, and set the breakfast table with a zeal she had not shown for a long time. It was almost like a ritual. There was no hurry. Each movement was made with intention, with reverence, as if knowing that something important is about to happen. The smell of bread spread through the house, awakening memories and hearts. As he poured the butter on the table, he heard footsteps in the hallway. It was the boy. His eyes were still sleepy, his feet dragged on the ground. She hugged him tight and said, "Good morning, my angel." He just smiled, as if he knew he had fulfilled his mission. A short time later, she heard another sound. A sound that paralyzed everything inside her. 3 beats. 3. Again. Just like the ones from the night before. But this time, heavier, slower, more human. It was the door. She stood still for a few seconds. The world seemed to stop. The clock no longer made sense. Time at that moment became compressed eternity. With trembling hands, she walked to the entrance. The heart pounded in the chest like a runaway bell. And when she turned the handle, she knew. I knew before I even saw it. Because there are things that the soul recognizes before the eyes. He was there. Thomas, the son. Older than she remembered. More tired than she dreamed. Her eyes were red, not from sleep, but from shame. He tried to smile, but the smile broke in half. The voice failed. Everything in it said, I almost didn't come. And, in fact, he almost didn't come. He stood for hours in front of that door. Inside the car. Then on the sidewalk. Then at the gate. Staring at the facade of the house that saw him grow up. Trying to find courage within himself. Courage to face his own reflection stamped on the face of those he had hurt. It wasn't pride that stopped him from ringing the doorbell before. It was the fault. That guilt that drags inside us and weighs on our shoulders until it bends the spine of the soul. But something moved him. Something bigger than fear. Greater than shame. Something he still couldn't name, but which had been pulsating inside his chest since the night before, when he found the boy. Yes, he had seen the boy. Walking along the icy sidewalk, holding the chain. And he recognized it. Not the boy, but the current. And when the boy told her what he had done, and where he had gone, and what she had said, Thomas knew he had no more excuses. That it was time, which, if it were not now, might never be again. The boy then disappeared. Literally. He disappeared in the fog of the street. And Thomas understood that he had received his last push from heaven. Now, face to face, he didn't know what to say. But he didn't have to, either. Because she went to him without saying a word, and hugged him. A long, warm, tear-filled hug. A hug that did not ask for explanations, nor offered conditions. It was a hug of welcome, of healing, of restarting. There, at that moment, all hurt was washed away. The entire distance was covered. All pain was recycled. And she said only one sentence. The miracle is not in who knocked on the door, my son, but in those who decided to open. And then they both cried, not as victims of the past, but as survivors of love, as brothers and sisters of the same pain, meeting again at the altar of humility. Forgiveness is not spoken of here. It is lived. He kneels. She lifts him up. He apologizes. She says she forgave a long time ago. And all this without haste. No dramatization. Only with truth. The kind of truth that doesn't need to be defended, because it stands on its own. They enter, hand in hand. The boy is no longer there. But he left his mark. The chain is on the table. The box still rings. And the coffee, now served for two, seems to taste different. I like home. I like reunion. I like it for free. The grace that comes when two hearts decide that it is more important to love each other than to be right. And perhaps this is the greatest miracle of Christmas. Seeing that time does not kill love. It only puts it to the test. And if love is true, it survives. He comes back. He transforms. And he reconstructs what seemed lost. The reunion between mother and son, in this story, is not just a beautiful scene. It's a class, a living message, an answer for thousands of people who live waiting for a reconciliation. To everyone who was injured, to everyone who hurt, and mainly, for those who are afraid to return. Because this story shows that there is always a way back, and that, sometimes this path begins with a simple step to the door. The next morning, the world outside looked the same. The streets, still covered in ice, the trees without leaves, the white winter sky like a screen of silence. But inside that house, everything had changed. The air was different. The walls, though the same, seemed to have witnessed a resurrection. The past, previously imprisoned in objects, now circulated freely, weightlessly, like a breeze of reconciliation. The smell of coffee was familiar, but there was something new, a peace that cannot be explained with words. It was as if God had passed by during the night, rearranged the furniture of the soul, placed new pictures of faith on the wall of memory, and left an invisible note on the table. Now you can start again. Thomas slept in the room where he spent his childhood. His mother covered him during the night, as she did when he was 5 years old and had nightmares. And he slept like a child who finds his womb again. Not the physical womb, but the womb of grace, of forgiveness, of the freedom to be who he is again. Because, you see, when we are truly forgiven, we feel as if we were born again. It is a kind of second birth. But this one does not happen in the hospital, nor in the midst of flowers and visits. It happens in the heart. We woke up different, not because everything has changed outside, but because something has been realigned inside. The soul, after so long imprisoned in the cell of repentance, finally receives the key to liberation. And this key has a name: New Beginning. The mother, now with less tired eyes, walked around the house as if rediscovering her own home. Each door he opened brought a memory, but no longer with pain. The memories had been washed away by the crying of the night before. Now they were just stories. Part of a past that hurt, yes, but that also taught. A past that formed the basis for that miracle. And it is at this point that the video finds its reason for being. Because we're not just telling a story anymore. We are extending a universal truth to those who watch. Everyone has something to forgive. Everyone has someone to look for. Everyone carries, hidden in some corner of their chest, a door that has never been opened completely. And many times, what is missing for this door to open? It is courage. Not the courage to face the other, but the courage to let your guard down. To take off the armor of pride. To admit that life is too short to wait for the right time. The right time does not exist. There is the now. There is a moment when the heart beats louder than reason. There is the moment when we realize that we are passing through here, and that fighting over small things, keeping distance out of pride, or being silent out of fear, it is a waste of life. Christmas, then, appears not as a date on the calendar, but as a living metaphor for this opportunity. The chance to be born again, even after having already been born. The chance to start over, even if the restart seems unlikely. That's why this story speaks to so many people. Because no matter where you are, who you've drifted away with, or how wrong you've been, true love always leaves a trail back. And if the other is not ready to receive you, that's okay. Start by forgiving in silence. Start by praying. Start by making room within yourself for the reunion that, one day, may happen. And even if it never happens, you'll still be free. Because forgiveness is not only for healing the other. He heals the one who releases. Who decides not to be held hostage to what they have been through. And this is the true magic of starting over. It does not depend on the other, it depends on you. In life, we are all collectors of interrupted endings. Conversations that never ended, friendships that were lost in time, parents who left without hearing an "I love you," children who disappeared in the curves of fate without looking back. But the new beginning does not need to erase what was. It doesn't require you to pretend nothing happened. The true new beginning is the one that recognizes the pain, accepts the mistake, but does not allow itself to be imprisoned by them. He says, "Yes, I fell. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I hurt. But today, I decide to follow." And when that decision is born from a true place, there is no winter that freezes, nor past that prevents it. The protagonist of this story, that woman of faith, did not forgive because she was a saint. She forgave because she understood that unforgiveness would be an eternal prison. That every night spent stoking hurt was one less night of inner freedom. And she wanted to be free. Free to love, free to receive, free to live what was yet to come. And the son, in turn, did not return because he was pressured. He came back because something bigger called him back. Something that went beyond his logic. It was the strength of the original connection. The call of blood. The cry of conscience. And, above all, God's answer to the prayer of a mother who never gave up. And maybe, right now, someone is watching this video with their cell phone in their hands and their heart trembling. thinking about that person who walked away. Maybe it's a father. Maybe it's a child, a brother, one love, someone who, because of unspoken words or poorly healed wounds, is no longer part of your present. And perhaps, while watching, you are wondering, is there still time? The answer is yes. There is always time. As long as there is life, there is chance. As long as there is faith, there is a way. As long as there is a door and a heart willing to open, the miracle is possible. And if you think miracles are distant, improbable, grandiose things, maybe you're waiting the wrong way. Miracles usually come like this: in silence, in an unexpected connection, in a hug that seemed impossible, on a visit to the door of his house, in a forgotten note, in a prayer answered in a subtle way. Miracles, my friend, are pieces of God who choose to touch the earth at the most unlikely moments. And maybe, just maybe, may this video be the miracle you needed today. A reminder that there is still love, there is still reconciliation, there is still a new beginning. Because, at the end of the day, the greatest Christmas gift, it doesn't come wrapped, comes in the form of forgiveness. And now, tell me, how many doors have you not yet had the courage to open? Maybe you weren't kicked out of the house like this mother, but perhaps it has been forgotten, ignored, or simply left aside. Maybe you've been waiting for years for someone to ask you for forgiveness, or maybe you're the one who needs to work up the courage to come back and say, "Forgive me." The truth is, we all carry unfinished stories, wounds that still hurt, words that were choked, gestures that never happened. But if this story has shown you anything, it's just that time doesn't have to be the end. It can be the new beginning. So, before you go to sleep today, think about who you need to forgive, or who you need to have the courage to look for. Because Christmas doesn't happen outside. It starts within. And the greatest gift isn't what you get, it's what you decide to deliver. Now I want to make you an invitation. If this story touched you in any way, comments below with one word, "New Beginning." This shows me that you stayed until the end, and that you are ready to write a new chapter in your life. And of course, subscribe to the channel right now. Here, each video is a new chance to rediscover what the world has tried to take away from you. Faith, courage, forgiveness, and humanity. Activate the bell, because the next stories may be just what your soul was asking for. And remember, every closed door holds a possibility of a miracle, but only those who have the courage to hit receive it.